Welcome to 5G Techratory and yet another exciting session full of information, inspiration and data. And this time we really mean it because we're going to talk about big data and cities, how to get it right, at least from the Dutch and Latvian perspectives. But before handing this stage to the moderator of this session, let me remind you that you are an integral part of 5G Techratory. All of your questions are more than welcome and more than important, so we remind you to ask your questions during this session, and we will do our best to answer them at the end of it as well. But now, it is my pleasure to give the floor to someone who really knows a thing or two about both of these things, cities and big data. No one else than Viesturs Salmiņš, the Managing Director of VFresh Innovation District. Viesturs, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Edgar, for a kind and lovely introduction. Nice to see you all, our panelists and those who are watching us online. We're going to talk about big data and cities and how to get it right in managing big data and putting them to good use for the quality of life in our cities. We have two panelists today, Dr. Mettina Veenstra, Senior Researcher at Saxion University. Hi, Mettina. Nice to have you here.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you.
And we have Gatis Ozols, Director of Digital Services at Ministry of Environmental Affairs and Regional Development. Gatis, nice to have you here in presence in Riga here today.
Hello, nice to hear you.
We have to say, for those of you who have been expecting Herr Baron, he is not here today joining us due of sudden illness. We hope that it's not C19. But fingers crossed he's well and recovering. So we have really big shoes to fill today for both Mettina and Gatis and myself. So those of you who are expecting her, I hope you're going to hang on with us in our conversation. So again, as Edgar's noted, we're going to have about 25 minutes or more than 25 minutes for our panelists here, and then we're going to open up the floor for the questions and comments. So please do have them posted on a dashboard, and we'll try to address them as soon as possible. But without further ado, I'll give floor to both of our panelists to give short introduction as to what they're doing with cities and big data. And as first, we're going to have Mettina Veenstra from Saxion University. Mettina, the floor is yours. Please give us shed some insights on what's happening with big data and cities in the Netherlands.
Thank you. Yes, so my name is Mettina Veenstra. I'm a professor of smart cities in Enschede, in the east of the Netherlands, Saxion University of Applied Sciences. My research group has a lot of connections with Dutch cities, so we're not cooperating only with Enschede, where we are located, but with cities all over the Netherlands, from Rotterdam to Zwolle, to Eindhoven, so a lot of different cities, and I would like to share my experiences with those cities with you today. In my group we have two research lines. One is about making valuable applications for the people in the city, so to help improving the quality of life in cities. And the other one is about data-driven policy making and better decisions for municipalities. Since I work for Saxion, I have always been working on really involving companies and citizens in smart cities, and therefore data platforms has been a focus of our group. So how can you use data platforms in a very open way in order to be able to involve citizens and businesses in different ways. We have a socio-technical approach. I think that's really important to keep the human perspective when you're working on smart cities. I think we have we had some smaller problems in the Netherlands with maybe not even privacy unfriendly solutions, but if the perception of the public is wrong, or if they don't see the use, then you really have a problem. So the socio-technical approach to smart cities is really important. And also for lowering the threshold of a lot of people that are not as data literate as they should be. We also focus on data visualization as a really important means to involve not only citizens but also professionals in the city, because this data literacy is not a problem of a small group. And I think by using data visualizations you can really involve maybe even all people in a smart city.
Okay. Gatis, give us a bit of a background, and Mettina, we'll get to the points you've raised, I think important, about open platforms, about is the big data big fat cat's game, either the big cities or the smaller cities can participate, and about public perception of these projects, which I think are absolutely crucial of how and whether we fund these projects from the public budgets. But we'll get to that in a moment. Gatis, we have been labeled as frontrunners in open data and management of big data. Where are we right now with the management of cities and data in Latvia?
Hello. I represent the ministry which is responsible for digital transformation policy overall in Latvia, so I'll cover most of the national level questions that we are currently focusing on and working on according with data and also the development of smart city solutions. But if we start from the vision, we see of course that data is a renewable resource. It has to be properly managed, it has to be shared, it has to be governed to generate a value. And from the government perspective, we see that the most benefits we get if we have these free data flows between, among, or across administrations, across sectors, between borders. And we see that we as a government have to be as enabler to develop such platform for cooperation, for sharing of data, not only from a regulatory point of view, but also enabling with technical platforms and standards. So in our vision that we are working for is to establish the national data sharing platform, which would include the central administration, municipalities, to enable this cross-sectoral exchange of data between government to cities, government to business, business to government, also business to business, to enable these possibilities of creating new services, to creating new platforms, and so on, and also to connect with European data spaces that are foreseen in the future. And we see that it's like an integrated part where government and municipalities join together. And this is currently what we see, what we are striving for. If we're looking on the current situation where we are, yes, we've progressed in the last years in opening of data in Latvia, and we started in 2017 by establishing our national open data portal, but then in 2019 our new government put into their kind of government a decree that we are striving for this open by default approach, okay, according to government and also municipal data, and it's resulted in numerous of benefits that we already can see now. We've established a plan with our NGOs on identifying the high-value data sets for businesses, for our social partners that has to be opened. Because, of course, there are some data sets which could be open by municipalities or institutions as such, but then are some complex ones, which we are generating the fee and so on, and we are working with institutions on that. And now we can see some first benefits out of it. Of course, there are some things that we are open at data, and these are used by different communities, but what's more important, I believe, it's that we have more and more data sets are kind of such values that it can be already used by businesses and to develop now products and services. For example, the transport timetable data is being used by Google or some other companies. We are pushing our data to World Health Organization regarding COVID-19, and we are using the stats also in our apps. And there are also some next level kind of initiatives where we are not only opening up data, but we are creating communities where businesses, where researchers and governments come together to create the ecosystem for next level kind of product development. And one
I
of
see
such
the refresh there.
Yeah, and one such is a multi-modality kind of network that's established here in Refresh, And there are also some other initiatives by municipalities, for example, on training on data analytics, even not only for their employees, but also for all the citizens of the particular municipality.
Okay, right. Good. We'll jump from the introductions right into the questions. Mettina, you've been working not just with the big names, Rotterdam and Amsterdam. You also worked with the smaller cities. So this is the question: is the big data area, the big data field, and its collection and management, is this a fat cat game, or the smaller cities can also contribute and participate and make the most of this whole new area? Could you elaborate on that a bit, please?
Yeah, so in the Netherlands, we see indeed that the bigger cities like Amsterdam and Rotterdam are moving faster than smaller cities, and that will have something to do with costs, I guess. But I think that that smaller cities also can start working, for instance, on a data platform, and maybe they should start to act small, but think big from the beginning. So I'm involved in a commission of our national standardization and normalization platform, which dealt with open urban platforms, and we wrote a document about how to develop such an open urban platform. We think that there are a lot of standards already available and reference architectures for urban platforms or for open urban platforms, but the technical implementation is not that clear. So that document we wrote is about that. We are talking about pivotal points of interoperability, which are really important points in the architecture, where you should use standards for instance, APIs or data models and metadata models. But we are also going into topics like local cooperation. How do you create such a system and put it to use in your ecosystem? We're talking about democratic values, and we also even have an example of a city that used our practical guideline for open urban platforms to start building their own urban platform.
So just to clarify here, would you say that finances perhaps is not even the biggest issue for small cities, but the issues of design, of usability, and sheer literacy of what's happening? Would you say that those issues also matter quite a bit here?
Yeah, of course. But if there is not enough money, then maybe you should start small. But you should keep this bigger picture, what the goal you will have in mind as well. And I also agree with Gatis that cooperation with in between cities could also help a lot. So I'm also involved in an initiative with some other universities, and our national Bureau of Statistics will also be involved in a data platform where we will focus on sustainability data, biodiversity, climate adaptation data.
Absolutely.
And cooperate between different cities. And I also would like to add that of course, it can be hard to see the costs and the benefits and to balance them, but there are some problems, wicked problems in the area of sustainability that you probably cannot solve without lots of data. So I think they should make this move also in smaller cities.
Gatis, we're moving back between the States and back to Latvia right now. The ministry has just developed its open strategy in Latvia. What has been the reception? The issues that Mettina just raised, do cities recognize the value of big data, of gathering data, of storing data, of cleaning up data, standardizing them between different municipalities and using them as a larger data lake? Do we see uptake? I mean, has it paid off, in other words?
Currently, if you look from the strategy as such, it doesn't generate the results
just yet.
Just yet, but I mean, without any other kind of effort. But what the strategy has, it has created the platform for discussion of awareness. What we see currently that the other municipalities are thinking on the municipal level of their data strategies. There are not only the big municipalities, there are also smaller ones. And what we see another trend is that some municipalities which see that they would like to focus on that and to get this, like their most forward-thinking municipalities, they're even appointing chief data officers for this one. And we see that from structural point of view, it's in sustainable manner, we see it would be the greatest benefit of this strategy. Of course, we see also the rising number of open data sets and so on, but I think the most important part is the structural changes that are happening currently in municipalities, and also that they are recognizing those shared platforms that are already available for municipalities, and they are now starting to use them to publish their data, and I think this is one of the important aspects.
Okay. Mettina, you've noted upon earlier in your presentation about the socio-technical approach, and I think that is crucial. Oftentimes people are a bit either afraid of what the data platforms involve, what the costs are, and what the benefits of them would be. So do you think that we're making the most of getting the idea well spread and understood, that we should invest in these data platforms and data collection and interoperability? And what's the case in the Netherlands? How do we make the public more interested and involved in that? But I mean not just the society, but institutions as well.
Yes, I think that it's important to create good examples that people get enthusiastic about, so that they notice that they really can influence things, or that their quality of life improves. I think we have some good examples with respect to vital city centers. So we did a big study where we also developed an urban platform and collected all kinds of real-time data from the city. And there were some outcomes that were really interesting for the public. So there was one part where they could contribute to with ideas to public space renovations. And also we proved that our dashboard for city centers that was not developed for Corona had some advantages in times of Corona, because of the traffic data we collected. For instance, you could get an idea of how busy it was going to get in the city center a bit later on. So I think that was a good example. And another example was a project, or is a project we're doing in Zwolle with a housing association. They want to give away big trees to people that are in their housing to prevent heat stress.
Okay.
And we used a lot of different data sources in order to decide which locations would be really suitable to put those trees, based on underground cables and pipes, for instance, but also based on a heat stress map, based on a map with the location of the housing of this association.
Okay. So what we see is that one way how to incentivize municipalities is to show, first of all, the social benefits of the projects, that they are very clear, that they are very data-based, and they're rational. Second of all, as you mentioned, the importance of visualization. A lot of data, perhaps not for the experts, but they're visually understandable and perceivable for the large audiences. How are we doing in Latvia with that? How can we incentivize municipalities? Those who are self-starters, that's great. You know, they're keen and they're energized and they're going to be at the avant-garde. How do we get the other ones moving in? As we know, as we're as strong as the network is going to be strong, and we're as strong as the data we have on a collective level. What have been things you've been doing to incentivize other municipalities to join in on data gathering?
This is also different strategies are applied, and one strategy, of course, we are having those sharing these good examples, and we are creating, for example, specific hackathons for municipalities where the municipalities can join. We are opening up some data from national databases. Municipalities are opening, and they are showing to their leaders also that the potential benefits of opening of data. This is one way how to incentivize. It's also of supporting of kind of capability development of municipalities,
Okay.
the skills and trainings and
Practical data culture.
yeah, practical data culture and also this awareness of data importance. And then there are things where we, as a central government, can manage with availability of funds or kind of, for example, one of the aspects for the next planning periods of having support from central government of ICT development in municipalities would be opening of data sets.
Yeah.
So it could also be some encouraging activities from central government side.
So incentivizing municipalities through platforms, raising the proficiency as far as data culture goes, and opening data sets which actually would benefit them to run utilities and manage utilities.
Yeah. Then there are just one of example that we are also planning a program in next period for municipalities for development of data-based innovations, so they could get a specific kind of funding for such kind of activities. So it's also a way where the municipalities already have to think not only about opening data, but already about applying those data to specific cases they have.
So if we would compare this case to the computer world, it seems that the big data universe is a bit more like big machines in the 70s, and we try to simplify and make it more available and make it more open. Mettina, back to you. So you're not just working with data collection, obviously, but giving on a practical side and also analysis of data and putting them to good use. Have you noticed any big issues or the common obstacles and barriers to municipalities and other utility managing institutions either gathering or storing or using the data to much capacity? In other words, there's a lot of talk of data deluge. There's so much data and we're actually not making the most of it. So what's the biggest obstacles you see in analyzing existing data?
Yeah, so there may be a lot of data, but actually putting it to use, collecting it in the right way, making it usable is quite time consuming, and it's also kind of messy, we found out. So yeah, it really disappointed us how much time is going into quite low level work. So that's one point. You should really reserve some time for it. But if you have the data coming in, then then it more or less keeps coming in, and you are collecting big data. So as we speak, every 5 minutes, a lot of data is coming into our platform, and that is really interesting because you can do a lot of interesting things with it. We also think that you should avoid collecting personal data as much as possible. So maybe for safety causes you can do it, but otherwise you should involve it or avoid it. Also, something that is privacy friendly is not always okay. So involve the public. Make it demand-driven and relevant on the side of the citizens as well as on the side of the businesses. And when you are putting it to use, you can have disappointing things happen sometimes. So in the Netherlands, a lot of cities used, for instance, Wi-Fi tracking to count passers-by in city centers, and these are important data, but we had to stop with it based on the GDPR. And right now, for instance, we are trying to use the data that we still have of this Wi-Fi tracking to use AI to learn from traffic data, if you can predict the actual numbers of people in the city centers itself to avoid this Wi-Fi tracking.
To actually learning. Also,
Yeah.
just wanted to clarify on, especially in people are getting more and more sensible and more specific about what data is being collected. So, what would your comment before we move to our final round of questions here? What would you comment upon an ongoing discussion, in fact, about what data do we collect, about sex and age and race, so that we don't misrepresent a certain part of the population? In other words, basically white males working in working positions. How do we make sure that the data collection is as democratic as possible, and that decisions that flow out from data collection are as democratic and as inclusive as possible? What's been the best practice in Dutch cities?
Yeah, I think that if you want to analyze that kind of things, you also need personal data, and if you are not using personal data, then you are measuring what is going on in the city. Yeah. And I don't think that that there will be problems like that. But we know, for instance, from our tax agency that things can go horribly wrong if you look at data the wrong way. So a lot of things have been going wrong, but not maybe as much in smart city context, not that I know of, but I know the problem.
Okay, Gatis, so what are we going with transparency? So people are getting more conscious about, as I just noted to Mettina, perhaps the literacy is growing day by day, year by year. What do we do with transparency, but also for business relevance? Mm-hmm. We've been talking about the municipalities quite a bit, and they are the ones who manage utilities to a great extent, and that's a great area, especially with the CO2 neutral cities we're driving. But what of businesses? Have businesses been interested in the data that you're offering up from the state level and municipal level? The uptake and buy-in from the business level, in other words.
Yeah, currently there are some data that are available and used by businesses, but I think that currently we are more in this phase where we are kind of forming those ecosystems of development and of application of these data. The WebFresh is one of examples how we can bring together businesses and municipalities to grasp this real need of the data which are needed for the business applications. Currently we have having some examples I already mentioned that are used by business, but I think that the next level is to have those unified data spaces where we speak not so much only about this alphanumerical data, but geospatial data and real-time data.
Which diversity.
Yes, and these are currently, I think, still a challenge for municipalities to provide.
I mean, we've been talking in the 5G conference greatly about the use cases. As long as there will be use cases for 5G, that the sector will start to deliver. So I think this is crucial, that the businesses and society understand more how the 5G as a technology can be instrumental in providing solutions and improving the efficiency for our utilities. As we're finally, we have got about 2 minutes left for discussion. I just wanted to kind of wrap up on for the cities that are just starting up. Obviously, the big cities such as Riga and obviously Amsterdam, Rotterdam, they have their gears ready. They are up and rolling and moving on. What would be your advice, perhaps in about a minute or so, for the roadmap? Where would you start if you were the small city, and what are the things you would try to avoid to make sure you're not running into those pitfalls? Mettina, let's start with you, and let's run up with Gatis.
Yeah, so I think it's important to involve your businesses. That would be, I think, my biggest advice. So I already said that a demand-driven approach is advisable. But we also did some focus groups with companies and asked them when would they actually use the data for their services, and they said things like there should be continuity, so we're not going to start if we know that in 3 years this whole data platform will be gone. There should be good governance. How can we cooperate? There should be quality of data. The municipality should have vision. There should be opportunities for open but also for paid data, but because there could be a business model for them in it. And things like open standards, of course,
okay.
and good maintenance. But
Mettina, we'll have to give Gatis a chance. So
okay, sorry.
When you said it's open and socially technically clear as to what the data is being used for, how and when businesses know how long will the platform is going to function, so they could invest their time and resources accordingly, and the governance and interoperability of the data between different municipalities. So these are the things that we hear from the Dutch experience. What about Latvia? What is it you would advise for the cities that are just starting up and thinking about their own data cultures?
The first things are similar to Mettina mentioned. It's like to have a community, to have this goal orientation. Yep. The second one, to use the shared already available resources, not to invest in the things that you can. Yep. You don't need to invest in. And the third one, when I talk to municipalities in Latvia, I understand that the crucial thing is to have appointed specific person, like a chief data officer or someone who has this leading role on driving this in municipality. So from my perspective, it will be as self-evident. We now have the lawyers in municipalities and human resource or PR people. We have to have in each municipality a data officer who would drive those things forward.
That's an excellent point. We have lawyers, we have security people, we have cleaners, and we have people in development, and we have nobody in data. That's great. We've run over about 45 seconds to a minute over our time here. Edgar, do we have any questions from our viewers and commentators that we could ask Mettina, and using a chance to speak with Dutch cities here?
Well, we have something even more interesting.
Okay.
During this session, we were running a poll and asking our viewers back home watching us in our platform, in their opinion, where lies the value of smart cities? And before giving the answers or their opinion and the numbers, I would like to ask all of you, including you, Veenstra, yourself. So once again, where lies the value of smart cities? And the options were safety of citizens, new revenue to municipalities, monetization of big data, or greening of big cities. Mettina, let me ask you first. So which of these options would be your first choice?
I think that greening of cities would be my choice. I think that for the kind of wicked problems that come with that, you really need data, and you really need cooperation between everybody in the city. And I think they really provide a big chance and opportunity for that problem.
Absolutely.
I think listening to her viewpoint, that wasn't a big surprise for us, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, what about you?
I'm the same, the sustainability of the cities, and not only the greening of cities, but empowering out of the citizens of the cities to realize their businesses and our social life and so on. So I'll go for that.
I would add, if we think that the livability of cities and them being green is a value for us as a society and as a European region and continent here, I would think there is a lot of money to be made for businesses as well. If this is a value, then there's a lot of work to be done from both the municipal sector, monetizing their utilities, and the private sector to chipping in with their capacities. So I think it's not self-exclusive. I think it's an aspect of accents and values that we place on our cities.
So is this an anonymous decision that all of you would be voting for greening of the big cities, including you, Veenstra?
I mean, I would give a footnote that the green cities won't come around by themselves. There'll have to see real people and real businesses and real municipalities actually driving the greening of the cities and using data for that. So I think it's actually a compatible answer there.
And that's exactly why I started this, that we have something even more interesting than a question, because the data coming from our viewers is absolutely quite different.
Okay, all right.
So maybe
up for a surprise.
Exactly. Maybe we need to continue this discussion with another session of comments or round of comments. But in the first place, quite safely, is safety of big cities, with more than 50% of answers.
All right.
So safety of big cities is number one. And what is more interesting, that at the moment, monetization of big data and greening of big cities have both the same, about a quarter of votes. But an interesting thing, while listening to all of you three, this number of monetization of big data grew. So that was the only one that really rapidly grew, and the safety of big cities, safety of citizens stayed the same. Okay. Any comments on this?
I mean, I would give floor to Gatis and Mettina, and then jump in if there's something. Mettina?
Yeah, I think we really need companies to achieve this, and that's also what we do. We cooperate with both municipalities and companies to work on this. But we also see that right now monetizing data or applications based on data for companies in the Netherlands is really hard. So we actually have a project going on about that. How can we work to solutions that have a business model that everybody that all the stakeholders like? How can we achieve this? Because in Living Lab approaches to developing applications, a lot of things are going wrong. We see right now in the Netherlands. So companies are not happy with the outcomes of the work they put into some solutions for cities.
This is a tricky area, so that's why we are saying that the name of the panel is Big Cities and Data, How to Get It Right, because there are a million ways how to get it wrong, and not many actually succeed. Gatis, anything to add on issues of greening and safety?
I don't think so.
Okay. Edgar?
One more last question before leading us all into the lunch break. What in your research and experience have been the highest value data sets that since opening have been actively used for new solution development?
Fantastic question. So who are the winners? Who are the best contenders for the data set top 3, top 4, top 5? Mettina, start with you. What are the most sought after data in your experience in Dutch cities?
I think in the Netherlands, from my experience, but I don't know if that's the experience of the whole country, it's traffic data. That's quite high quality and also useful for a lot of different applications.
Absolutely. I think it's similar. Gatis, what's the most soft, so from the Google perspective? What's the most Google data sets?
On municipality level, it's also on local transport, the municipal local transport, but on some more general perspective, it's also the data of company registration data of the financial data.
Absolutely. I mean, given the next decade that Europe is driving us with CO2 natural seas, I would assume that the climate issues would have to come in the front. And this was interesting that the people didn't vote the greening of the cities as the main issue, because oftentimes I think people don't connect how big data management can actually improve the greening of the cities. And I think we have to build these bridges, and as Mettina noted, we have to make sure that people understand what the data are about, by very clearly embedding them in socio-technical categories and using good, clear visualizations of how big data can actually improve our decision-making to make cities more livable and green. So I think this is something we actually have to work upon. Mettina, any final closing comments before we go to lunch? Mettina and Gatis? We're good.
Yeah, well, maybe about privacy issues. So I think it's important to have some guidelines for data collections in cities, and we have been also doing some focus groups about that, and have some guidelines right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the key is there because you can lose people. When you don't take up this privacy issue. Absolutely. And acceptance issue maybe.
Yeah, compliance and acceptance and privacy, I think, will be the issues. If the big data is to actually deliver on its value, then people have to be sure and safe that their data is not going to be mismanaged and also not leaked, as we say in common parlance. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the insights from the Dutch seas, and back in Latvia we're doing as moving in the ranks of other European cities. And thanks very much to Dutch Embassy in Latvia in organizing and helping facilitate this panel from their side with our lovely guests and speakers from the Dutch cities. So thanks to Indra Fabregas tremendously for their help in organizing this panel. Thank you so much, 5G Secretary, and best of luck with getting things right with big data. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, thank you, Viesturs, and once again, your panel discussion participants and members. It does sound that for the next edition of 5G Secretary, we'll definitely have more experience and more data to continue this discussion. Before letting you go and enjoy your lunch break as well, let's just have a quick look how did our in-house 5G artist see this discussion from his point of view. So we do have some data, but it's interesting in this discussion, and it's still, as you can see, filling, and it's still growing and developing. But what is interesting that the most dataful discussion has probably the least data in the drawing, and more of other things in it. So we'll give you some time to enjoy it also afterwards. But now, speaking about the lunch break, no matter if you're enjoying your breakfast somewhere in the world or it's close to the dinner time, here in Riga and here in our 5G Techrotary platform, it's very close to the lunchtime. But this time we will ask you not to leave the Techrotary platform, but to stay in it. Pick your favorite cup of tea or coffee, make it, sit down and enjoy the platform, because this break will be sponsored and will be influenced by our lovely silver partners, Meet Riga, the city government agency responsible for turning Riga into this Nordic hub of e-conferences and phygital events. So if you ever wondered how does the most beautiful melody of Latvia sound like when it's provided by the most professional musicians in Latvia? Or can two of Latvia's best chefs beat each other, in the kitchen of course, with the help of Red Beet? Or maybe what places to visit in Riga when the next time you will be physically here? Let's have a look.
Here, Riga. Meet Riga. Meetriga.com. Beat Riga. This is Martin Siermais, a Latvian chef known as a legendary rebel in the kitchen. He has travelled the world with his own TV show, but his heart belongs here, in Riga. This is Maxim Tsekot. He is an ambitious haute cuisine master. His restaurant in Riga is a well-hidden treasure. Maxim is well known as an original contemporary chef with over 20 years of international experience. This is a beetroot, a well-known vegetable in Latvian kitchens. This solid root shows its sweet soul to those who know how to cook it. Martins and Maxims have accepted the challenge. Today they are going to cook a fine 3-course meal with beetroot. But first, they have to do some shopping. And that's why they are at the Riga Central Market.
Oh, hello my friend.
Hi, how you doing? Huh?
Yeah, good. You?
Good, we have this challenge today.
Yes,
We have to
fantastic.
cook together.
Finally.
The core can be the beetroot,
Yeah.
and then we can source some small things. So basically, last mushrooms can be here.
Oh, okay.
The proteins, and yeah, let's move to your restaurant and cook. So
Yeah, but we make 3 dishes.
3 dishes out of
Oh,
them.
okay.
Okay.
Finally,
that's
I can
good.
change to beat you then.
Okay, good luck.
Okay, let's go.
So let's check some smoked stuff and let's check some pork stuff.
Okay.
Okay, let's go. The most beautiful pork heart in a... Yeah, 2 hearts of pork costs €1.88.
Super expensive.
You want to taste?
Not that
Some
much,
cabbage.
maybe. Yeah.
Could you please open the pomegranate? Look, I think I will make the juice out of that.
So we have a beetroot this way, I think. So I take with the small ones, like look like heart. See, heart in the garden, perfect. The pear is fantastic. That one,
It's a nice texture.
tough.
So it's actually
So when-
keeps together.
But I like this ones. This is quite interesting for me. Perfect for the dish and beetroot.
Okay, let's take them then. What we do now?
I think we're gonna go in the kitchen.
So yeah, let's move to the kitchen and
Yeah, fantastic.
cook the best part.
Yeah, now in my restaurant.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a fantastic place. It's about 100 years old. This is an olden factory. So my dish, of course, the beetroot what we picked in Center Market. We cook it like aged all the farmers on the grill, on the charcoal. So it gives you a smokiness to it. And I made the sauce, so reduction with the beetroot juice with our grapes. And the beetroot leaves, what you still have in the garden with a bit of beetroot powder, which just give you a freshness to it. First dish what I cook for you, we call it this heart of the garden. So this is beetroot.
It's tasty. Wow.
But what I did, I actually played with the super classic recipe. It's called shuba, or it's a herring potato salad with the beetroot. I cooked the beetroot, I smoked it in a juniper. Then I did the classic thing with what they do is the boiled potato, mayo, and some onions in that. And instead of the herring, what they usually put, I just bought the caviar. Because we are in a restaurant, mate.
It's a classic Russian salad, shubachka. So yeah, you know probably the ingredients. I just made them a bit more posh with the bit of caviar. So enjoy.
All right, thank you. Smells like my childhood.
My childhood.
So what I've done, I just poached very quickly with the fish stock. We have root vegetables, all the carrots which we find in the garden. And we're gonna poach the fish. A fantastic fillet. The beetroot gives the raw just a little bit mild and sweet taste. And sunflower oil. So the sunflower oil we make ourselves. So my second dish is bass from the lakes.
The fish is so soft with the richness of it.
What I did, I bought
pork's heart, pig's heart. I sous vide it, and then I grill it. And the same I did with the beetroot. So it's the heart from the garden, as you said, and the heart from the animal.
Hello again. As a main course, I'm serving you the pig's heart, and the heart from the garden, the beetroot, with some hocus pocus spices and sauces. Enjoy.
All right, thank you. It's really
So rich.
Let's do the third one then.
Yeah, let's do that. I cooked the beetroot, and then I candied, and then I made an ice cream, like proper ice cream with the Camilla and vodka. And then I made a paper out of the beetroot juice and a bit of pomegranate as well.
Nice. So the biscuit is made from birch juice with a little bit grilled pear.
Oh, you're gonna make the garden now on a plate, yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
So dessert.
wow.
Wow, the color.
So we have here, this is like autumn vision.
It looks like
autumn
looks like
on a dish.
with every color in it, you know. So I think
All the dishes were so amazing.
amazing.
So you think who would win from those two?
I think victory is for beetroot.
Cheers,
Cheers
to that.
for that.
Cheers for that, and cheers to the makers of it.
Yeah, for chefs.
For the chefs, kitchen chefs. It's really tasty.
meetriga.com.
We are the Riga Freeport, the one that borders the European Union and Russia. The world may have seen bigger ports, but when it comes to quality, whether it be our team, technology, or logistics, not many ports have the same standards as we do. We will be glad to work with you and support you in developing infrastructure. We will meet and guide your ships to the pier, and we will send them to their next destination. Riga Freeport. Big in business, big in quality.
Over the horizon, in what is tomorrow, lies the unknown. Applications we can't imagine today will change the way we live and suddenly become the norm. 5G is the path forward. However, it requires a staggering investment that means missteps aren't an option. Cisco provides the most important pieces of that investment: a flexible software-based service creation platform, security, and automation. Pay-as-you-grow licensing removes the risk in your journey to 5G and gives you the agility to move quickly. With a proven, open, and cloud-native architecture designed for now and the future, you get best-in-class network scaling that is simple and automated. Proprietary barriers disappear, and new revenue opportunities open. Services can be deployed when and where customers need them. Only Cisco provides innovative technology leadership that spans network operators, enterprises, the public sector, IoT, and web providers, bringing the expertise and security to support you every step of the way. With a flexible cloud-to-client approach, you can be ready to provide the unimagined. Between the needs of today and the trajectory of tomorrow, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.